Hello and welcome to 20 Lore Pro. I'm SirAshtown, and join with me today is Zan Syed. Very excited to have you here today. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's been a tumultuous time for lorcana. We've had some bans, and now the meta is the Wild West. A lot is being developed. Things are happening every day almost, or at least every weekend. We have a new tournament. Everyone's trying to build and find out, what do I play for store championships post-ban? And so we're here to kind of take a quick peek at what you're playing, but also to catch up with you after the last big tournament that we saw you in. So how's everything going with you, Zan?
Everything's going great. Having a good time. I'm brainstorming about what to do post-bans.
Yeah, this has been an exciting time. I just did an interview earlier today with JDRR where we were talking about kind of his brew that he's bringing. We've seen decks that were at the forefront, like Sapphire Steel, that are now, they're trying to recover. They're trying to just rebuild. And some other strategies like you'll see in that list with Sapphire, Amethyst, Blurple that kind of now have some viability like they didn't have before. So excited to talk more today about what you have here for Store Champs. Since your last tournament, how did everything go? I mean, March was like a huge month. We did 3 tournaments. You've had the Cross-Continental Championships. You've had a lot going on. So how are you doing after those tournaments?
I mean, I was pretty tired for quite some time. As you may remember, I got food poisoning in Wisconsin. I recovered, and then we went to go play in my hometown, Atlanta. We played at Gubu. That was the last tournament I ended up playing in before the bans happened, and I got to win. Right? I finally felt like it was a 5K. Finally felt like I cracked Blue Steel. I ended up playing Blue Steel with the Sheriff, who costs 9. He's uninkable, and he costs 1 less for every item that you have in play. And so I pretty easily won the tournament with this card, and kind of surprised that I didn't think of it earlier, but better late than ever, you know. Cracked the format on the last weekend possible. And then they announced the ban for Blue Steel. We lost Hiram and we lost Vitalisphere, and kind of made Sheriff go back into the den to hibernate.
Sheriff, that is a really interesting card. I hadn't really seen it. How did it play out for you?
I mean, it was probably one of the easiest tournaments I've ever played.
That's so incredible, and sad too that at the end of kind of, I shouldn't even say the end of the format, but it kind of was like 7.1 into now like 7.5, like new meta.
Yeah.
But the end of it.
It was still evolving. That's what was cool, is that I played in 4 tournaments. You know, Jeremy won the first one. I count that as a win. I made top 4, gave him the win, right? So won on the first weekend. Weekend 2, Aaron, lorcana Bro, made it to the finals. I lost my win and into top 8. I count that as a win. We go on to week 3. It ended up, Blue Steel ended up winning one of the 5Ks. And then moving on to the last weekend, which was Gubu in Atlanta, I ended up winning that with Blue Steel. So I counted the entirety of my March attending tournaments extremely successful. It could have been better if I had figured it out, but I like to think that if I didn't lose in those 2-3 tournaments in between, that I wouldn't have been like motivated to figure out Sheriff, right? And so I'm glad I got destroyed and I was able to figure out before Vitalisphere left.
Well, sometimes I've talked about this in the past, that we're in this game and we can build a deck and you get to play it for a snippet of time for that small moment, and it can be fun because you broke either a deck, you broke the format, broke the meta, and then you're able to just use it once or twice and then it's gone forever. But you have the memories of your friends who you played alongside with, the tournament that you got to play it in, and then you get to look back with the nostalgia of saying, I remember back in set 7 I got this deck before it got banned. And I think those are things at least I hold on to as a card player when I look back. Even in Lorcana, like set 1 and 2, I remember the decks I played very fondly, and I at least enjoy the fact that they're there for a moment.
Yeah, no, definitely. Good times.
Although, it was very sad for you that you got sick. Despite being sick, you were actually doing really good on that second day.
Yeah, I mean, I was playing Green Steel, and basically every person I played against was like, my husband, my friend told me that you were playing Blue Steel and you were playing Green Steel, and it totally got me. And I was like, that was the idea.
That's awesome. Well, glad that you have recovered. Glad that we're here. We're looking forward. What color pairings have you seen now in the meta come to light? Kind of come to the top of the surface amongst kind of all the chaos that's been going on?
Well, we're kind of in the honeymoon phase of like, we can figure out like pretty much everything is viable right now. DKP won with blue red, more of a Maui Shark actions type of deck, which is great. Then I think red purple made the finals, so red purple's back, and it was more of an evasive style. I think Ed released a guide on it as well. I know that green steel is performing well. It's been doing well in my testing. Amber Steel Songs is well positioned because blue red, like traditional Sisu builds, are completely eradicated. So Purple Steel is also performing well. I think there were 2 copies in the finals of the Forbidden Mountain tournament. So yeah, I mean, pretty much every one of the main color combinations is viable. I mean, people seem to be pretty happy about the bans.
I'm glad you said the top viable color pairings, because I was thinking of like, when is Emerald Sapphire gonna see the light of day? Like, when are we gonna get that Ink Geyser deck to come off?
I mean, I played against the Ink Geyser deck. It was good against Blue Steel, and I drew against it. I like to think of the Blue-Green Geyser deck as like the ultimate draw deck. If you're trying to draw every round in the tournament, that's the deck that's gonna get you there.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you that this is kind of the Wild West. We're seeing things kind of float to the surface as we get more and more data, more tournaments. I want to say the more seasoned, well-known players who have had repeated wins, we're starting to see them win tournaments again. And people are looking at their lists and saying, okay, is this for this tournament, or is this something that we're going to see going forward that we're going to build into? And that's kind of always the question is, hey, this deck won this tournament, but is that going to be good going forward, or was it good in that one moment? It like hit the meta perfectly. And so looking at store champs, do you have any predictions of decks that you think for the local players at their stores are going to be seen played quite a bit?
Well, SSG is going to have a 10K basically the first weekend of set champs. So like May 3rd to 5th, right? So I think that they're going to have a whole coverage fiasco situation, and that's going to have a lot of influence, right? Like they are picking up a lot of influence equity, like their tournaments are at CCS scale, right? And so besides DLCs, those type of tournaments have huge impact. And so do I think that that tournament is going to set the precedent for the rest of the set champs?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. These big tournaments, I mean, we were seeing it develop over the course of March between the 3 huge tournaments. I think SSG had another one before that, and then there was even another one in March that were all shaping all of them. But I think you're right, heading into store champs, that Southside Games tournament is really going to shape a lot of what we see at the local stores for store championships. So it's something, if you aren't aware of as a community, you should probably put that on the calendar to watch, or at least check out their Twitch VODs afterwards for Southside Gaming. They have a great setup, and I think it's going to be a really good tournament. Zan, are you going to be in attendance for that event?
Yes, I'll be there.
Well, another reason to watch. We're going to have a great player that we know is tried and true to compete. So be looking out for that tournament.
It's going to be awesome. I mean, I really think that tournament will set the precedent for the rest of the set champs. But the interesting thing about set champs is it doesn't usually take the whole meta into consideration, right? Like I think that you can really perform well with anything. at set champs as long as it takes your local meta into consideration, right? Like the person that you see in your local lorcana league, you kind of see a lot of players bring the same thing and try to get better at their color combinations, right? The blue red guy is the blue red guy, the red purple guy is the red purple guy. Like, and you understanding, oh, this person is gonna make it far in every tournament, so I'm likely gonna play against that person. You mentally preparing and having a game plan against those people with whatever deck that you bring is what's going to determine what does well at set champs. Because the thing that we haven't seen is set champ decks convert into like DLCs or continentals. Like they certainly can, but like we see a lot more off the wall decks perform well at set champs. So yeah, so I think that in set champs, you still shouldn't be afraid to play whatever color combination you want. There's no forced situation, you know?
I think that's an excellent point, that you can still take into consideration that the top players are trying to compete at a really high level against the top meta, but your local store isn't always going to be that. There are stores that are like that. I mean, goodness, we hear about some of them in Florida or even in Atlanta where you're like, oh gosh, like it's packed house every time and there's top players every time. But my local meta, for instance, is very social. They like to play theme decks. They have a more kind of open style play. And so I don't necessarily bring my meta defined, I need to break this deck. It's more, okay, I'm playing at the pace that I like with the style I like to play with. And I have a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah, depending on what your goal is, I think that set champs is a great place to test things out. You know what I mean? Like test the waters. But if your goal is to win them, it's about preparing against those end bosses and identifying who is your local end boss, right? And the more you can prepare against their color combinations, the more likely you are to do well in your tournament.
Kind of talking about final bosses, end bosses, I would consider you one in a lot of tournaments. What deck are you kind of bringing or think could have some viability for store championships?
Yeah, so this is a blue-red deck that I played in LCC, Cross Continental Challenge. That's like a tournament where it's like Europe versus North America. This is the deck I played in the last round. And so it has a bunch of unusual choices. It's obviously inspired by DKP's list, who's my teammate and a fabulous player. Basically, you know, the take on this version of the deck is his version goes up to Sisu, right? And this version is trying to deal with the early game using Bell. And it takes advantage of Popsicle and playing Bell early in the game to stop your opponent from questing a whole bunch, and basically says, hey, if the later the game goes on, the more likely I am going to win. I also added Vitalispheres, and I felt like it just gives the deck more power to deal with locations and makes Maui Shark way more threatening, and makes your baby Tamatoas more valuable as well, because you just have more high impact items.
I don't know, it's kind of interesting. Early on in set 7, I'd say the red-blue decks were shying away from Vitalisphere, but as we've seen more, especially McDuck Manors be played by a lot of other blue decks, and even some Queen's Castles, I'm starting to see people test that. You think that Vitalisphere's got some game back into the scene?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you're playing Tamatoa and Maui Shark, why would you not play Vitalisphere? And I mean, that's something I've even told DKP is like, dude, you should at least be playing one Vitalisphere, because it creates so many situations where your opponent can't play around your Maui Shark, right? Because people's answer to Maui Shark is going to be, let me just like not quest until they play their Maui Sharks. They're never scared of a rush Maui Shark if you never like create that opportunity in your deck.
Yeah, that's pretty scary to think about. A big Maui that the turn it comes out, gains rush, and then gets an action back all in one go while removing something from the board.
I mean, it gets scarier than that, right? Like you bring back How Far I'll Go, and then you just sing it with Grammatala that same turn you took out one of their guys, and you gain a lore. I mean, the chains can be ridiculous.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun for the red-blue player, maybe not a lot of fun for the opponent.
Yeah.
Now, what would you say are some of the best lines against, I would say, the majority of the playing field, so a general field going into it?
I mean, you just want to go popsicle, ramp with sail, play another popsicle, play a grammatala, then sing how far I'll go into a Maui Shark or a Tamatoa. You just continue to develop card advantage. You know, there's different approaches to different matches, right? Like, let's say I'm playing against Green Steel. I know that they're weak against McDuck Manor, so if I'm on the play, I'll be more likely to ramp into McDuck Manor. But if I know that it's an attrition matchup where card advantage matters, then I'm going to be thinking about how I can play, how far I'll go as many times as possible, and time my be prepared correctly. So, I mean, with this deck, the world's your oyster because you have so much card selection with Develop Your Brain and Visions, right? So whatever plan that you have, you can most likely make it a reality just because the nature of the deck is like, I can find whatever you need whenever you need it.
We've seen 4 of Visions a lot, but now kind of the post-ban, seeing more Develop Your Brain, you're digging pretty deep. You're able to find cards as you need them against different matchups, so even if you do mulligan wrong or the mulligan doesn't turn your way, then you still have a lot of cards that make this deck pretty forgiving because you can find them. Well, what do you feel like this specific list is the best against as far as looking at you're like, okay, I see this like across the table. I know I'm getting this win. It's going to be pretty quick.
I mean, I think you're pretty advantaged against other Sapphire decks, and I think that you have a great plan against aggressive strategies. So if you're playing against the Diggy Diggy Holes or the Purple Steels, you're gonna run them over, or Green Purples. Like, those are really great matchups for a deck like this.
That's one reason why Ruby Sapphire, I think, still has a lot of game, is that it answers a lot. I mean, you have the brawls, you have the be prepareds, but even on the board with the bodies, you're progressing your board state by playing Grammatala, by playing Tamatoa, the Mauis, so everything's progressing and it's also an incredible threat at the same time. Whereas sometimes with other decks, they're playing out characters that are threats, but they don't necessarily always progress your resources in ways that like a Grammatala does. I think this is a great list. Now, what would you say this is weakest against, or maybe one of the worst matchups for it?
I think that Green Steel can be tough. Discard strategies can definitely be tough. Amber Steel songs can be really tough because they have a Long Game Zeus and World's Greatest Criminal Mind. Those are the main strategies that I think you can be weak or susceptible to.
Yeah, with some of those targeted removal like that, they can you might be able to get ramp up to that Maui Shark or Tamatoa to get the payoff or to recur, but then they're able to use like World Greatest Criminal Mind, just like you're saying, to stop it from taking effect immediately. But man, that Vitalisphere line in the Maui, that's pretty cool. Well, are there any cards that you think are flexible in the list that you might increase the count of, maybe like a Pirate's Life, or even decrease another one just due to the meta?
The coolest thing about this deck is like, it's just flexible, right? So let's say your meta is a lot of Green Steel, then you would be thinking about cards that give you value from the discard, right? So I would consider playing like a Great Stone Dragon, right? And I would be thinking about getting rid of Maui Hero to all, right? Like, you got a lot of options. Let's say you know that your opponent's decks have a lot of characters that have 2 power or less, then I'd be thinking about more closer to DKP's list, where I'm trying to ramp even harder and trying to get to big Sisu, right? So I think that you have infinite options with a strategy like this. Blue-Red has just always had a huge selection of cards. You just have to think about what is the meta that you want to prepare against, and then just double down on it.
Well, Zan, we appreciate you sharing with us a list that I think has a lot of great viability going into store championships, especially for set 7. As you've said, this could all change, especially as we look at how Southside Games 10K goes. And so right now we have some plans, some viable decks that we can bring, but we'll kind of have to see how it develops into this 10K that's coming up very soon. Just for everyone at home who's going to be watching with Southside Games and with Zan, always keep watching the Discord because there's lots of deck discussions, deck decks going on, people sharing what they're doing and what they're preparing for. And kind of on that note, you're a part of World Class Cards. You have a competitive team that you're a part of. We got to see kind of a lot of your members, if not, I want to say more than half of them for sure, at the World Class Cards event in Wisconsin. But how is the Metafy going? How's the coaching going? Helping people prepare for Southside and for Store Champs?
I mean, people are learning and they're becoming dangerous. So look out for, the Metafyers.
Yeah, if y'all did not know, World Class Cards, they have a Metafy. And Zan, I believe you have one individually, is that right?
Yep. It's at Zan Syed, metafy.gg at Zan Syed.
So if you ever want to find a strategy guide or how to play, even a coaching session with the man himself, you can go over to his Metafy and get a coaching session and kind of learn from some of the best in the game. They are fine-tuning, they're testing all the time, and so they've got a lot of wealth of knowledge over there on their Metafy, so make sure to check them out.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Every single time I feel like I coach somebody, I get a message, "Oh, I won my set champs." I'm like, that's cool.
That's awesome. Anything that you'd like to say to the Toy Lore Pro community or shout outs before we head off?
Yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you guys next time.
We appreciate it, and we will also put the link in the description for your YouTube channel because you got a lot of things going on, Zan, and you have your podcast that y'all do that's been a really huge, the community loves it, so you guys have been doing great.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you all the viewers at home for watching. We really enjoyed this deck tech with Zan, and we have more announcements coming up with Toy Lore Pro, more deck techs, so be looking out for those videos. We hope to see y'all in the future.